Hello and welcome to this episode of BariAftercare, the podcast, where I have very specific tools for you tonight. We talk about this stinking thinking thing all the time, this negative self-talk, these automatic negative thoughts. So tonight I'm going to give you very specific tools that you can use to combat these, because I really sincerely believe that one of the top culprits in not following through with the gotta do's, the behaviors that lead to weight loss and maintaining that weight loss are a result of your negative self-talk, because negative self-talk leads to negative feelings. Negative thoughts and feelings lead to negative behavior. You are very familiar with that unfriendly, unhelpful, unhealthy loop. So tonight's podcast is topic is called specific tools to challenge and change. Challenge and change stinking thinking. Specific tools to challenge and change stinking thinking. Let's get to them. So some of you have taken my online class, which I usually do once or twice a year, and it's called Gain While You Lose. What do you gain in that class? You gain insight, awareness, information, education, tools, tips, and a community. What do you lose? You lose stinking thinking. Hopefully you lose some weight. You lose some negative attitudes. You lose unhealthy thoughts. You lose unhealthy, improper education that you might have brought into this process with you. One of the classes that I teach in Gain While You Lose is specifically about healing the mind. Here's what happens for most of us, regardless of it's in a weight loss journey, or in my case, this is the year I'm going to dedicate to learning that Spanish again. And this is where we want to be, right? So you hold a finger up by like your forehead level. This is who I want to be. This is how I want to be, what I'm capable of. In the arena of weight loss, I'm capable of making good decisions. I'm capable of food prep. I'm capable of drinking water. I'm capable of taking my vitamins. I am capable of following through with what I say I'm going to do. I am capable of eating protein first. I am capable. You're capable of all of those things. There is no doubt. When it comes to my learning Spanish, I'm capable of reading the book. I'm capable of making that time if I want it. I'm capable of conjugating verbs in the Spanish language. I did it in high school. I'm capable of learning the vocabulary. I'm capable of repeating the phrases. So we're capable, and that is who or what we want to be. We want to be the person who does what it takes to keep the weight off, to live at a healthy weight for your body, to do the things you want to do in life, to stay at a healthy weight so you can participate, to keep your health improved or prevent other problems from coming down the road. So that's who you want to be, and you are very capable of it. So if I've got my right hand up at my forehead, but my left hand is down by my chin, there's a distance between those two lines. And the top line represents who or how I want to be. The bottom line represents where I'm actually at, what I actually do. So while you're capable of all the gotta do-ums, because honestly, none of them are that incredibly difficult, sometimes we don't do them. While I'm capable of doing the gotta do-ums for learning Spanish, I'm currently not where I want to be with the discipline or the follow through. So there's a disconnect between where we are and where we want to be. And our job, if we're working to help you become closer to, we want to narrow that gap. We want to become and follow through and do more of what we say we want to do. What's in between there? What stands between where you're at now and the follow through to becoming who you want to be? Well, it could be a lot of things. And a lot of things we've talked about on this podcast. It could be fear of success. It gets in your way. It could be fear of failure. It gets in the way of my follow through because maybe it's a conscious thought, maybe it's a subconscious thought, but I'm so afraid of failing that I don't do the stuff. So I won't let myself succeed because then there's the possibility of failure. Or maybe that fear of success is subconscious, but it's so great that I won't let myself follow through. I have this like subterfuge going on. It's we're self-sabotaging because I'm so afraid of succeeding. Why? Because then I got to stay there. Why? Because then people expect more of me. Why? Then I've got to continue to put forth that effort. So other things that could come between where you're at now, not actually doing the things you want to do fully, and who you really want to be, following through with what you're actually capable of, are things like shame. We've talked about this on podcasts. That can come from being called names as a child or internalizing the messages you got from other people and now not believing you're worth it. It could come from low self-worth. It could come from a damaged self-esteem, which is very linked to shame. It could come from a lot of uncertainty. I know how to be the heavy person, but I don't know what it's like to be a person who maintains a healthy weight for a long time. That's frightening to me. It could also be stinkin' thinking. It's not just one of these things. It's a combination of these things. So there's this muck between where you're at now, which is maybe doing some of the things it takes to remain successful with your weight loss and keep that weight down. And then there's the line up here where I want to be, and we want to constantly be moving toward that. The thing about the weight loss process is very few programs, practitioners, very few people have caught on to the reality, and I say reality and I mean reality, that there are things that are conscious or subconscious that block us from living our best lives. And one of those things, my friends, without a doubt, is negative self-talk, stinking thinking. So while we've talked about that a lot, I haven't given you, well, I have. We've gone, most podcast episodes would give specific tools, but this episode is going to be about the cognitive behavioral skills of challenging those negative thoughts. So I'm going to teach you some skills for challenging those thoughts. Before we go there, though, I want you to, I gave you that visual of one hand at your forehead, one at your chin, and there's a gap moving toward that gap. Another way to look at this, if you're a visual person, is if you're looking at a piece of paper. On one side, we've got, this is what I know what to do. I know what to do. These are the things I know I have to do. And we call that the gotta do's in BariAftercare. These are the things I know that have to be done if I want to maintain my weight loss. And then on the other side of the piece of paper, we have doing. There's a difference between knowing what to do and doing the things we know to do. And sometimes people will use the quote, I think it's by Maya Angelou, when we know better, we do better. Not necessarily, friends. I'm not totally buying into that. It's a great thought and it's a possibility. And of course, you can't do better until you know better. But you know better. You know the things required. You knew before having weight loss surgery, before taking a GLP-1, or before going on a fad diet, or before going into a medical weight loss program. You knew what needs to be done to keep that weight off, but you didn't always do it. So in between the left-hand piece of the paper that's knowing and the right-hand piece of the paper that's doing is a line down the middle, and in that line, 2 lines maybe, make a lane up and down that paper, are the obstacles. The obstacles. And they're the same things we talked about in that other illustration. It's fear of success, fear of failure, shame, all of those things. So my question to you as we go forward, as you go forward on a day-to-day basis, do you want to live on someday I'll? Someday I'll live that healthier lifestyle. Someday I'll start taking time for myself. Someday I'll stop making excuses for doing things that harm my health. So do you want to live on someday I'll, or do you want to live on today I'll? Today, I'll live my healthy lifestyle. Today, I'll take time for myself. Today, I'll stop making excuses. It's a choice we have to make every single day. And it's much easier to live in today, I'll, when we work through the obstacles that get in our way from knowing what to do to following through with what to do. So the first thing is you got to learn what the obstacles are. And a lot of the episodes in this podcast are to help you identify some of the things that might be standing in your way, such as, I'll repeat some of these: fear of success, fear of failure, low self-esteem, unresolved childhood trauma, not being able to speak your truth, having poor communication skills, being unfamiliar with setting boundaries, being afraid to set boundaries. All of those things can stand in your way of doing what you know needs to be done. So we are in BariAftercare working to teach you how to overcome those things so you can do what you know needs to be done. All right. Now, on to this business of understanding your thoughts. We have to heal the mind because let me tell you some statistics. And this comes from a book by Brian Johnson, a guy I think is really, really wise and has some really good books. And his book is called The Philosopher's Notes. And in the book, he quotes, I don't know who, but he says, on average, we have about 60 thoughts a day. 60,000 thoughts. Geez, I wish. 60,000 thoughts a day. That's why we say our minds are running, our minds are racing. We have a lot of thoughts going on. He also says 95% of those thoughts are the same day to day. So we have these, these thousands and thousands, 60,000, where they come up with that, I don't know. But we have a whole many thousand thoughts going through our minds day after day after day. And research tells us that 95% of those thoughts are repeat. We're just playing the tape over and over and over and over again. And to make matters worse, 80% of those thoughts are negative. So what does that tell you? This is hugely important and has a huge impact on your recovering from the disease of obesity. So if we're thinking the same thoughts day to day and 80% of those thoughts are negative, we're just following what I refer to as a cow path leading nowhere. A cow path, because I'm from Iowa, is very familiar to the Midwesterners. But if you imagine a great big field full of grass, just full of grass, and you imagine in the middle of that field, there's a well-worn path where no grass has grown. It's like 2 feet wide and it's just dirt. And that dirt comes from the cows walking over that same path twice a day to get their food and then back out to the pasture. When all those cows walk over that grass day after day after day, for year after year after year, they develop a cow path. No grass grows there. Our brains are like that. These 80% of negative thoughts that travel through our mind day after day after day travel and create these cow paths or these neurotransmitter routes. And so it's very familiar to us to automatically jump to the automatic negative thought. If we are going to create different thoughts, guess what we have to do? Create a new cow path. And how do we create a new cow path? Well, imagine how many times it took a herd of cattle to walk over that land and trample that grass before no grass grew on there. That's how many times you have to think the new thoughts. That's how much effort you have to put into this. Because people will say things, well, Dr. Stapleton, I tried that, it didn't work. Well, how long did you put effort into that? About 2 weeks. Well, friends, I don't know how old you are, but if you're having those same thoughts day after day after day, and you're, in your third or fourth or fifth decade of life, and 80% of those thoughts are negative, it's going to take a little longer than 2 weeks to be able to change those negative thoughts into more positive thoughts. So, this cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a theory of counseling, and I'll tell you just a little bit about cognitive behavior therapy. And if you've ever been in therapy, I would almost guarantee you that some part of the therapy was focused on cognitive behavior, because it's the idea that you're thinking, what you're thinking, how you're thinking determines your quality of life. Ding, 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 ding. It's true too, by the way. So if you're thinking about negative things all the time, what do you find? Negative things. How do you feel? Negative. Your thinking determines the quality of your life. Think about that. So if you're in your weight loss journey and you are replaying those old tapes from years of dieting mentality, why bother? I'll start again on Monday. It doesn't work. Nothing works. I don't know why I try. I'm just going to start over next Tuesday. I blew it today. I might as well quit. That all or nothing. Your thinking, my friends, determines your way of life. So this cow path of negative thoughts repeated day after day after day, it's not too hard to figure out then why we're stuck in those thought cycles, why those thoughts become automatic. And that's why they're called automatic negative thoughts. You don't have to work too hard to produce that. Why bother? You don't have to think too hard to think, oh, I suck. You don't have to think too hard to come up with, well, who cares anyway? Because we've thought it over and over and over, day after day after day after day. So change your mind, change your life. Absolutely true, without a doubt. If you change your thinking, you'll improve your life. That's if you improve your thinking. There could be nothing more true than that. So cognitive behavior therapy is a step-by-step way for you to begin to identify, right? You can't change something you don't know. Awareness is always the first step of change. God, I didn't realize I was thinking that way so frequently. Gosh, I wasn't aware that I said the word every other sentence. Gee, I wasn't aware that I had very poor eye contact until you pointed it out to me. Whatever it is, we can't change it unless we're aware of it and make a conscious effort to make it different. So cognitive behavior therapy is step by step. It's not snap your finger, just like there's, I want to say, no magic pill for weight loss, but some people seem to think they found it in the GLPs. It's a wonderful tool, just like weight loss surgery, to losing weight. It's not a magic pill, though. It's not magic. There's science behind it. And if you don't continue to follow through with the guided doings, nothing's going to keep that weight off forever unless you stay on that medication forever. So cognitive behavior therapy is step by step. We got to identify, there I go again, negative thought. Then I have to replace it with the healthier thought. What this does is it changes your inner dialogue from, oh my God. And I was with my friend this weekend and I kept saying, oh my God, it's hard to be me. Oh my God, it's hard to be me. Because I do klutzy things a lot. But I thought, even though to me that's kind of a joke, I need to quit saying it because it's a negative thought and it's a repeated thought. It's hard to be me. And in some ways it is. But I always add, but it's always entertaining. But I just don't know that that's a good habit for me to think. So maybe I'll stop doing that. But cognitive behavior is utilized so frequently by therapists because studies have shown that it's effective for treating all kinds of things: anxiety, depression, addiction, and a lot of life's challenges. And if getting weight off and keeping weight off isn't a challenge, I don't know what is. So we've got to combat this negative thinking. And of course, negative thinking can be described as thinking that leads to negative consequences based on false beliefs. We just focus in on a few selective facts, ignoring that there are other explanations possibly, and ignoring things that would lead to a better consequence, because we have it's almost like being narrowly focused. You have that pinpoint focus on the negative. So it's usually very rigid. I'm tied to it. I'm convicted to it. It's absolute. It's that all or nothing. And these thoughts that we think that are negative aren't really usually supported by facts. So we're going to talk today about challenging those thoughts and finding some of those negative thinking patterns. So we're going to start with, but what I want you to think about is another visual. These thoughts, these automatic negative thoughts. Imagine that there are ants crawling through your brain. Ants. These are ants, automatic negative thoughts, A-N-T, automatic negative thoughts. And we don't want ants crawling through our brain. We need some pest control. We need to get rid of those things. We need to exterminate. So today we're going to talk about how. So as we go into this, let's understand the connection between thoughts, feelings, and behavior. We've talked about this a lot of times before. So I believe that it's impossible for me to keep weight off. If I have that thought, what are my feelings? I believe it's impossible for me to keep weight off. I'm going to feel like I'm pretty discouraged, because if something's impossible, it's pretty darn discouraging. So now I had this thought. It may have been conscious, it may have been subconscious, it may just constantly be running through my brain. And I'm feeling like, why bother, right? That's my thought. I think it's impossible. I wonder why bother. I'm feeling discouraged. So my behavior is, well, why make a healthy choice if this is an impossible task? So you see how those things are correlated. Thoughts create feelings. Feelings create behavior. Behavior reinforces the thought. So when I choose the unhealthy food, it reinforces the thought that I can't do this. It's impossible for me. I'm going to share some examples with you, and then we'll talk about getting into changing these. So let's say you weigh yourself. And remember, go back and listen to the episodes on goal weight. Don't even get me started. Sorry, I gotta have a drink of water here. Let's say you weigh yourself and you thought somehow you were gonna lose 5 pounds, or you thought you'd been doing really well and the scale would go down, but you weigh yourself and you don't like that number. And your thought is, how can this happen? I can't believe this. Why do I even bother? All that work, and the scale doesn't cooperate with me. I'm having that thought. What are my feelings? Discouraged, disgruntled, dismayed, frustrated, angry. So that kind of feeling leads to, well, screw it. I'm going to eat what I want then. And that reinforces the thought that, why bother? I thought I was doing good and the scale didn't reflect it. So that's an example of a negative thought and how that creates negative feelings and leads to unhealthy behavior. Now, what if we were to challenge that? What if we were to challenge that thought? So look for alternative ways of thinking. Look for alternative ways of behaving. So let's play out this example. But first of all, a question for you. Are you willing to do this? Because this takes effort. And I will tell you that without this effort, your stinking thinking, your automatic negative thoughts are going to continue to lead you away from where you want to go in life. They are going to continue to leave a gap between who you want to be and what you're doing. So my hope for you is that you will put effort into this. And this is, if you're going to put effort into something in your life, this is one of the greatest tools you can have in all areas of your life, because stinking thinking leads to stinking behavior, and kind of a stinky life. So if you change, the book, what's the name of the book? Change your mind, change your thinking, change your life. Change your thinking, change your mind. Change your thinking, change your world. It's really, really, really true. So let's say now you're determined that you're not going to live in stinking thinking land. You're not going to live on someday Isle. You're going to live on today Isle. So let's say you weigh yourself and you don't like the number, and your automatic negative thought is, all that effort and nothing. Why bother? And you go, wait a minute. I'm aware. Ding, 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 stinking thinking. I want to make a new cow path in my brain. So I have to have an alternative thought. So the alternative thoughts could be, well, I am expecting my period tomorrow, so there may be some, extra weight going on there. Or gosh, maybe I'm retaining a lot of water. Or wow, I didn't really write down everything I was eating this week. Maybe I didn't do as well as I thought. But you know what? I know that if I continue to do what I'm supposed to do, I will get the results I'm looking for. The process leads to the outcome. The process leads to the outcome. Oh, yeah, I like that. Follow the process. So now I'm thinking, I'm going to follow the process. I've changed my thought. I've created an alternative thought. I've come up with other possible explanations for the scale not going down. And these thoughts are more positive and they lead to hope. Oh, yeah, that process, I got to focus more on that process. That gives me hope. I'm feeling better. That leads to, you know what? I'm going to go out there. I'm going to eat my protein first. I'm going to make sure that I wait those 30 minutes before I drink that water. And then in a couple hours, I'm going to have that protein shake. Just what I have on my plan. So alternative thoughts, you catch that negative thought and then you change it. And we'll go over some specific, in more detail, ways of thinking about that. All right, let me give you some other examples. So let's say your boss just chews you out. It's the end of the day, you're in your office, the boss calls you in while you're walking out to the car and says, hey, you just got just a minute? Sure, what do you need? Hey, I just wanted to ask you about Project XYZ, and that's due in a week or so. I just wanted to check and see how you're coming along. I haven't seen anything about that. And, I want to make sure you're on schedule with that and just checking in. So you're like, yeah, I'm on it. But you leave the office and you have this automatic negative thought. Why is that guy micromanaging me? Or why is she, checking in on me? Doesn't she trust me to do my work? She's always on my case. I'm a grown person. I'll get my work. So your negative thoughts are all over. You're replaying all those negative thoughts. Now, how are you feeling? Kind of grumpy, kind of pissy, kind of blamey, kind of miserable. And so when you get home, this is the old story of, you come in, you're crabby, you're grumpy to your partner, the partner's grumpy to the kid's grumpy to the dog. And it kind of rolls downhill, right? But these thoughts you had in response to the boss are what created how you felt. Now, what if you applied an alternative thought? So the boss calls you in, asks you those same questions, and you're like, you leave and you go, that is a great boss. I am so grateful that she checks in, just making sure she's not telling me how to do it. She's not, just checking in on me. I am so grateful to have somebody like that to help keep me on track. Now, how are you feeling? You're feeling positive. You're thinking, I'm so lucky to work for a person like that. And you leave and you go home and you kiss your spouse, and then your spouse is all joyful because you came home happy, and your spouse and you go play a game with the kid, and the kid's happy, and the kid just goes and snuggles on the dog. It works that way for real. All right. Now, last example. You get into this debate. You're on your way home, and you usually stop, your routine, your plan, part of your process is to stop at the gym. Maybe you lift weights, maybe you take Zumba class, maybe you take a spin class, whatever you do. But your routine 3 days a week is to stop at the gym. Well, let's say it's Wednesday and you're a little behind schedule and you get into this mental debate. Oh, I'm tired. I'm kind of sore from Monday. It's gloomy out. Oh, gosh, it'd feel so good to just go home. I don't know. I'm just not into it. So, what are these? These are negative thoughts, right? You're aware, like, whoa, roll it back, play that tape back, because now I'm feeling, disinterested and, oh, kind of in the mood to make excuses, and I'm feeling kind of sluggish, and I feel unenthusiastic and uncommitted. And you're like, I'm just going to go home. Okay, is that going to lead you to where you want to be? Or did something get in the way of you knowing what to do and doing it? Yes, it did. And what was that something? The mental debate, the negative thinking. So as soon as you become aware of this debate, do I really want to? I'm tired, I'm sore. Stop, check. This is what I do. This is why I have mantras. And my mantra for exercise is, it's what I do. It's what I do. Exercise is what I do. Then there's no debate. It's like, not having that debate. Exercise is what I do. Now I feel determined. I feel positive. I feel absolutely on my way, zoned in to my commitment and my process. And those feelings are going to lead me to getting my butt in the Zumba class, in the weight room, or on that bike. So your thoughts, your feelings, and your behavior are so coordinated. So you can be a dreamer and you can live on someday Isle and you're like, someday I'll do that. I'm going to dream about being that healthy. Or you can be a doer. And the doers, the ones who take action, the ones who put effort into changing the thoughts, are the ones who are going to get the results. All right, so the cognitive behavior therapy. We're going to take the negative thoughts and feelings and reshape them in a more positive way. That's how you become a doer. So I'm going to share with you a tool that they have called the ABC model. They use this in cognitive therapy. There are worksheets. I will link the worksheets in the notes. Or you can go on your friend Google and go cognitive behavior therapy worksheets, and it'll give you all of these things that I'm going to talk about. But these are great because these are ways to train your mind. So just like I am going to put more time and effort into my learning of Spanish, you have to put time and effort into this. It's like homework. It's like Laura being in those classes and completing her degree. It's like anybody who's taking a class to get a promotion at work. It's like anybody who is taking piano lessons to get to their recital, or anybody who's training to do a 5K. We have to put the effort in. So if you're not willing to put the effort in, chances are you're going to have that big old gap between knowing what to do and what you're actually doing. All right, ABC. What is there's the A stands for something, the B stands for something, the C stands for something. So we'll go through some examples. So the A is the actual event, the activity, the adversity. That starts with A, right? Actual, activity, or adversity. Something happens. B is, what's your belief system? What do you believe about this thing that happened? And C is the consequential feeling. All right, let's go through some examples of the A, B, C. And we're going to use the same examples we used a few minutes ago so you can understand how to plug these into the ABC, which is the cognitive behavioral skill. So A, activating event, what happened is you got on the scale and gained 5 pounds. That's what happened that led to your belief or your thought. Why do I bother? No matter what I do, we went through that, right? So your activating event was getting on the scale. Your beliefs or your thoughts, those automatic thoughts, those ants crawling through your brain, were why bother? The consequent feeling, miserable, defeated. And that's how the ABC happens. And then you have to decide what you're going to do. So we'll add that D. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What's your effort going to be? Am I going to change that thought, or am I going to hold on to this negative self-talk? All right, let's go through those examples again. A, the activating event was you're walking out of work and the boss pulls you into the office. Your automatic thought was, why are they picking on me? Why they micromanaging? C, the consequence or feeling was, I'm ticked off. All right, here's another different example. So let's say you have a coworker who rarely acknowledged you before you lost weight, now stops you in the hallway to think about, to chat with you, maybe to invite you to lunch or see how things are going. So that's the activating event. B, your belief or your thought is, why are you talking to me now? I'm the same person I was before. You didn't have the time of day for me then. If I'm thinking that, how am I going to feel? I'm going to feel angry. I'm going to feel resentful. I'm going to feel pissy. What if I put a different alternative thought in there? It's unfortunate that this person didn't get to know me before when I lost weight, but you know what? I'm glad to have the chance to decide for myself if I want to be friends with them or not. So that's a different thought. So you went from that automatic negative thought to, why are you talking to me now? B, you didn't have time for me before. B, to, well, I don't know if they're a B or not, but you know what? I get to make up my mind by getting to know them better. And then you're going to feel more optimistic, more positive, more willing to give the person a chance. So there's an activating event and then your belief about it. So a lot of us have been, right? We have these same thoughts day after day after day after day. Why don't people talk to me just because I'm overweight? Why don't people talk to me just because I have red hair? Why don't people talk to me because I'm bald? Why don't people talk to me because I'm short? Why don't people, whatever it happens to be, we've been carrying these thoughts around in our head. So of course they're going to be automatic. Are you willing to provide alternate thoughts, alternate beliefs? Because it will change how you're going to feel. All right. Another tool. Hang on, I'm going to get to a different page here. Okay. I'm going to go to one of these worksheets that I pulled up. Okay. All right. One of the exercises, one of the worksheets that I'm going to give you is called the CBT thought record. Now, this is like homework. It's a thing you actually write down because you have to start to get in touch with, what am I actually thinking? One of the tools that I teach in my therapy and in the Gain While You Lose class is, imagine you have a teeter-totter. And a teeter-totter, can be balanced if two people sit on it at just the right spots, or one person can be heavier, the other one lighter. And you can, depend on where you sit on the teeter-totter, you can change who's up or who's down on the teeter-totter. Well, imagine that on that teeter-totter, on one side of the teeter-totter, you have thoughts and feelings, and on the other side, you have logic. Now, sometimes our automatic negative thoughts, which we're identifying in the cognitive behavioral world, are so big, like, I'm so angry you're talking to me now, you never talked to me before, and it's imbalanced, right? Your logic is gone because you're so rooted in this negative thought, which is leading to negative feelings, which is going to lead you to behave either rudely toward the person or aloof or talk behind their back or something. On the other end of that teeter-totter, we have logic, which needs to have a little more weight put on it so we can balance that teeter-totter. So part of what we're doing in cognitive behavior therapy is trying to balance our huge emotions, our huge negative thoughts, with some logic. So let's work through this cognitive behavior thought record, because that's what we're doing here. We're trying to balance some logic with these illogical negative thoughts that we have. All right, so here's the situation. You wanted a job, you didn't get the job, but you put a lot of time and effort into preparing your resume, preparing for the interview, and your initial reaction. So when you write down on this, the first thing you're going to write down, and it's written out for you, is what was the situation or trigger. In the ABC model, this would be the activating event. These are all cognitive behavior exercises, just different ways, because the ABC method might work better for you. A thought record might work better for you. I'm presenting several of them right now, and you can pick and choose when you download them and see what works for you. All right, so that's the situation, the activating event. Didn't get the job. Now, what's your initial reaction, your initial thoughts? How did you feel? What were you thinking? What did you do? I was angry. I was angry. I felt ripped off. I felt defensive. I felt injured. And I felt hopeless. Now what am I going to do? So now we have these, what am I going to do? Leads to feeling hopeless. Why didn't you hire me? I'm angry. So we've got that initial reaction, and then the negative thoughts where this job should have been mine. It should have been mine. It's not fair. I've been cheated. I have been ripped off. I'm completely useless. If they didn't want me, why bother? I'm completely useless. There's no point trying again. You know what? I'm just going to accept that I'm stuck. Ooh, big time negative thoughts. And those feelings that go with them are angry, hopeless, worried, scared, defeated. All right, what is the supporting evidence? What hard evidence supports this hot thought, this angry, this automatic reaction? Well, I didn't get the job. There's some supporting evidence. Somebody else was appointed the job. There's more evidence. I didn't get it. They gave it to somebody else. Obviously, I'm worthless. I got feedback about what I hadn't done well in the interview. So clearly, they recognize that I'm not worth it. So now what are we doing? We're just feeding into the negative thoughts we have. And we have, by God, we have evidence. I didn't get the job. They gave me the feedback. They didn't like it. Now let's supply some alternative thinking, alternative beliefs, opposing evidence. So what kind of evidence? Now, this is the logic we're applying, right, on that teeter-totter. We got that. We're heavy. We're sitting at the bottom on the ground. We're angry. We're hot. We're feeling rejected. We're feeling dejected. We're feeling hopeless. Logic is sitting up here going, wait, what about me? So now we're going to give some opposing evidence and that opposes. So we're going to try to balance the scale a little bit by giving some opposing evidence. All right, here's the opposing evidence. I was encouraged to apply for this job. It wasn't when I went out and saw it. So somebody else thought I might be good about it. And I did receive some positive feedback following the interview. So there were a lot of things about me that they did like. Okay, now I'm starting to get more balanced. That teeter-totter is starting to leverage out. The balance, the logic is getting heavier, and that negative emotion is kind of coming up a little bit. You know, I've been appointed to jobs in the past, so clearly I'm not a loser. People came and sought me out and asked me to do different work. So, yeah, I guess I do have some worth. People have actually sought me out. Some additional opposing evidence. Well, I am respected in my job, and you know what? I'm really paid very well in my current role. And gosh, my supervisors, my coworkers, they really value me. So now I'm finding some balance by bringing forward some alternative thoughts that are more positive. Now we look at what's a helpful way to look at this situation. Okay, here's a balanced thought between all that automatic negative stuff and then, the alternative thoughts. So a helpful and realistic way about thinking about this situation would be, you know what? I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that I didn't get the job, but I can accept that, in this situation, it wasn't for me. another balanced thought. You know what? Interviews are tricky. It's really difficult to know what people are looking for. So I put forward my best shot and it wasn't for me. So the other person might have been better suited for this job. I don't know who they were or what their experience is. And you know what? I gained some really valuable experience. I'm glad that I had the chance to apply for this. It's some learning tools. Okay, so this is how we use cognitive behavior therapy. There's nothing wrong with those automatic negative thoughts. They happen. That's being human. But do you want to live there? Because those automatic negative thoughts can lead to some pretty negative outcomes. But if we look at and apply some logic to the situation with some alternative thoughts, we can usually come to some kind of a balance and find healthier ways of looking at some things. All right. Another worksheet is linking feelings and appraisals, or what you're making of the situation. Let's go over some examples. All right. And this is, again, these are all cognitive behavioral therapy tools, but they're just framed a little bit differently. The bottom line is the same. We're trying to identify our negative thinking. We're trying to apply some more logical or alternative thoughts that are more positive so that we don't spin out of control with our negativity, because that's what usually happens. We get stuck in the negative. Remember at the beginning, I said we have 60,000 thoughts a day. We repeat 90% of those, and 80% of those are negative or something like that. So we want to interrupt that negative thinking cycle. And cognitive behavior therapy gives us a lot of tools and exercises and worksheets. So if I were you, I'd look these over, find one you really like, and then look through it every day. All right, here we go. This one's called linking feelings and appraisals. And this exercise helps to identify the association between your feelings and, check this out, your perceived meanings. Because, friends, think of it this way. Somebody might say something or do something. We all have a filter, and that information comes through our own filter, and then we twist it to coincide with what we already believe. For example, the situation or the activating event. My friend doesn't reply to my text message or my phone message or my voice message or my whatever, my email. What meaning do I ascribe to that? Here's where we get into trouble, friends, because we are ascribing a meaning to this that may or may not be accurate. But to us, it's law. This is how it is. This is what that means. And we're mind reading. And that is really ineffective and unfair. So what we do with that is, my friend doesn't respond to my message. My automatic thought might be, oh my God, I've offended her. Oh my God, I've offended him. Now, this is probably coming from somebody who is a people pleaser. And the automatic thought is, oh my God, I did it again. I hurt their feelings. I just want to make them happy. Why aren't they responding? Did I upset them? Oh my gosh, I probably did. I upset them. I've offended them. That's my own assumption. And one of the four agreements, that great book, is don't assume. But this is what I'm doing. I'm assuming. I'm ascribing meaning to this. This is my perception. This came in through my filter of being a people pleaser. Now, so I'm thinking, oh my God, I've offended them. Now I'm feeling rejected. Oh, they didn't respond. I'm feeling rejected. And that's where we usually leave things. If we're applying a cognitive behavioral process to this, we look for an alternative meaning. Because maybe it wasn't that I offended her. Maybe it's just that this isn't a personal thing. Maybe they're really disorganized. Maybe they're so busy. Maybe their view of life is, I'll respond when I get time. It doesn't mean necessarily what I've ascribed it to mean. So if I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe they're scattered. Maybe they're busy. then my new feeling is a little more hopeful. And if we wanted to take it further, which I want to take it further, then we would say, when you don't respond to my text, unfortunately, my automatically thought is I've offended you, and I just want to clarify that with you. What can I expect from you when it comes to responding to text messages? Because my daughter-in-law, if I text her, it might be 5 days or 10 days or not at all that she'll respond to me. Doesn't bother me. I know that's how she is. I'm the same way. I don't respond to text messages right away. It could be today or tomorrow or the next day. It doesn't mean I don't care about you or love you or want to. It means I got a lot of stuff going on in my life. And not that you're not important to me, but the situation you texted me about doesn't rank in the top 50 of the moment. All right. Doesn't mean you're not important to me. All right. Here we go. The next example is I shout at the kids, that would fit for me. I shout at the kids. My meaning is I'm a terrible parent. And that is exactly what I would have thought. Oh my God, I'm a terrible parent. What kind of human would do that? That is my meaning, which leaves me feeling ashamed, disgusted, discouraged. Now, we are humans. And so if my 90% behavior, isn't yelling at my parents, or even if it is, that thought, I'm a terrible parent, could be replaced with alternative thoughts. I lost my temper. I have a chance to learn from this. I lost my temper. I don't like how I feel. That gives me information that if I want to feel better about myself, I need to respond differently. So we need to apply alternate meanings to this behavior. So let's apply it to the weight loss world. Oh my God, I blew it with food at lunch today. Oh my gosh, the meaning is I'm never going to get this. I'm never going to get this. So I'm feeling hopeless. I'm feeling dejected. Now, if I apply an alternative meaning going, you know what? That wasn't my proudest moment. And I know that I went in that break room fully aware what I was entering into, and I was hungry when I went in there. So, you know what? That wasn't my best moment. I can do better. Now I know that isn't the route I need to take. Or I blew it. Yep, sure enough, I did. That doesn't make me a failure. And it doesn't mean I have to wait till Thursday. I'm going to pick it right up now. Now I'm feeling more optimistic. So, this whole cognitive behavior thing is about recognizing our negative thoughts, evaluating them, like what makes it true that I'm a loser? What makes it true? You're challenging these thoughts. Another tool is a more simple one. This exercise is called catch, check, change. It's 3 C's. Catch it. Ooh, I noticed that unhelpful thought. I noticed the why do I bother? I noticed the I'm such a loser. I noticed the I give up. I noticed the I'm such an idiot. I catch it. First step of change, awareness. And then check it. Is this true? Am I a loser? No, I have a really good job. You know what? I manage to pay the bills every month. I get my kids to school on time. I'm not a loser. So check it, apply some logic. Is there concrete evidence to support this? Can I think about this in a more logical way? Is this thinking helpful to me? Does it fit with my values or goals? Will this kind of thinking take me to where I want to be, or will it lead me further from where I want to go? Well, clearly, negative thinking is going to lead you in a direction you absolutely do not want to go. So, change it. What's a more realistic, logical, helpful way of thinking about this? Just because I believe I offended her. Does that mean it's true? Just because I had the thought that I'm a terrible parent, does that mean it's true? Just because I had the initial thought, I can't do this, does that make it true? Well, no. I've lost weight 20 times. I know I can do it. And so I will do what I've done before when it was working. How will thinking this way help me reach my goals? Am I willing? Here's a good one. Am I willing to go through the struggle with this negative thought in the service of focusing on what really counts? In other words, am I going to stay stuck in this negative thought, or am I going to pull myself out? And that doesn't mean pull myself up by the bootstraps. It means I'm going to say, this thought is not helping me. This thought is leading me into an unhealthy place. This thought is not going to help me pick myself up and continue with my healthy process. So the skills of cognitive behavior therapy can do that. It takes effort. It takes awareness, but I like this. Catch it. Ooh, I caught that negative thought. I'm going to check it. Does this mean it's true just because I'm thinking it? Are there other alternatives? Is there some logic I can balance this negative emotion out with? And then how can I change this into something that will lead me? And it takes work, my friends. And are you worth it? I don't know. Would you tell your friend she's worth it? Would you tell your husband he's worth it? Your father, your sibling, your sister, your aunt, your mother, your daughter? You are worth it, just like they are. Now, there's more to this in terms of checking what you're thinking. And I want to help you identify the kinds of thinking traps that you might be falling into. So that's where we're going to pick up next week, the thinking traps and how to get out of them using these cognitive behavioral skills. So you don't want to miss next week, and you do want to start practicing. Catch it, check it, change it. ABC, activating event. What's my belief about it? What can I do to change it? Alternative thoughts. So work on this with a partner. Find some people in your family. Maybe you want to work on this with your kids. Maybe you want to find somebody in a bariatric group. This takes effort. And if you can find somebody who's on the same page as you are, it's a wonderful thing to do together, because you can learn and grow. And I promise you, change your thinking, change your life. All right, that's where we're headed. So I want you to, one thought today, here's your take home, your task. One thought today that you have had that's been negative. I want you to evaluate it. What were my thoughts? What were my thoughts in relation to what happened? How did those thoughts make me feel? How did I behave afterwards? What could I do next time I have that thought? Or if I were to do that situation over with the information I have now, what could I do with that thought? What kind of alternate thoughts could I apply to this situation? How could I change my thinking about that? And where would that lead me? Just one today, and maybe share it with somebody. It's a great skill for every area of life. And that's what BariAftercare is about, because I say we go beyond bariatrics. We take the information, we apply it to our bariatric life, but we take it beyond and we apply it to every area of our life, because these skills apply to every area of our life. So it's your choice. Here's a great set of skills. Practice them. I will post the links, or just Google cognitive behavior worksheets. I invite you to join our BariAftercare group, where maybe I'll do a live webinar. That would be really fun. Let me make myself a note. Live webinar on practicing cognitive behavioral skills. Ooh, that'd be fun. All right, we'll put that out there. You can join us, whether you're part of BariAftercare or not, but missing out if you're not. All right, my friends. Thank you for joining me. Remember, this is your health. That makes it your responsibility this day and every day. So I suggest living in today aisle. See you next time. Thanks for being with me. Bye.